What's going on, everyone? Travis the Stock Geek here, and today's video is all about my favorite tools that I use in finding and managing stock investments. So I'm going to walk through my favorite tools and talk about each one and how I use it. And hopefully there'll be something new or useful that you can use in your investing process. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and we'll get going. So the first tool that a lot of people are familiar with is a free tool like Yahoo Finance, where you can find basic stock quotes and basic stock charts and things like that. I've actually been moving away from Yahoo Finance. I find that one, they haven't added anything new in the last decade or so, but also they add a lot of like ad and editorial content, videos from places that I don't care about and frankly I don't find very useful. And so the interface just gets pretty cluttered. So in terms of stock charts and stock prices, I actually like using a platform called TradingView. Now, TradingView has a free tier and a premium tier, but I use a premium tier so that I can do a lot of different things like get alerts on stocks and things like that I'll talk about. But here I like to manage my watch list. I have a bunch of different watch lists, and I can look up, different tickers on all types of securities from stocks to crypto to futures and options. And so I find this a really, really valuable platform. You can actually look up charts and then change the time frames and change the intervals. You can add, arrows, and you can add text, and you can do lots of different technical indicators. So you can do volume, and there's just a lot of different options with how you can customize charts, and you can even share and publish these charts as well. So I find TradingView to be a really valuable platform. I even get alerts on certain stocks where I can set up alerts that email me or text me if a stock goes above or below a certain price. So I find all that really, really helpful. Now, another tool that I'm using to replace Yahoo Finance is a tool called Koifin. Koifin is a relative newcomer. It's a startup that's just received some funding in the past year or two, but they built a really beautiful interface for exploring lots of different charts, but also fundamentals of stocks and even macro-based things. So, for instance, you can go in here and look at how different indices are performing. You can look at a calendar to see what types of economic releases that are happening in various countries. You can go in and look at fixed income data and see things like yields on government bonds across the globe in different countries. And so it's a really nice interface for that. But like I said, its bread and butter for me is actually digging into certain stocks. And here you can find a really nice interface for looking at the income statement, the balance sheet, the cash flow of a company over the past 5 years. And you can do it on a quarterly basis, annual basis. You can see trailing 12-month numbers. You can see growth rates and different ratios as well, like ROE and ROIC. So it's a really nice tool. You can also see analyst estimates for earnings and revenue, and you can see how those estimates have changed over time. So for instance, here on Apple, we can see that the estimate for this year really, started to go down at the beginning of the year and has flattened out and actually gone up a little bit lately. And you can see how the estimate is trending for next year as well. And so that's a really nice tool to use Koifin for. And you can also graph fundamentals, which is really cool. For instance, if you want to see, for instance, how revenues have trended for Apple, you can see a chart going back, 5, 10 years and see how the revenues have trended. You can look up even things like the share count. So if I want to see, for instance, how the share count has grown or shrunk, in Apple's case, for instance, in the last 5 years, they've been buying back shares aggressively. So you can see their share count has shrunk a lot. So this is really cool because not only can you bring up a chart of the price and volume of the stock, but you can actually chart fundamentals of the companies themselves. So I find that really, really useful. I find myself using this a lot. And you could also benchmark Apple against another company, for instance. So you could put multiple companies on the same chart and see how those have trended together. Now, Koifin it's got a lot. I won't be able to walk through everything I use it for, but I definitely recommend checking it out. It's free right now. They haven't gone to a paid tier yet. I imagine they may sometime in the future, but right now it's a free product. I'm finding lots of great use cases for it, so go check that one out. Now, one place that is also a premium product that people often use for screening and for looking at stock quotes is Finviz. So Finviz is decently useful. Again, I think the quick screener is sometimes helpful. For instance, if you want to look for stocks in a given sector, let's say you want to look at healthcare stocks and you want to find stocks that are hitting 52-week lows in that sector, you can enter those criteria, and then outspits a list of stocks that meet that criteria, and you can order it by market cap and things like that. So that might give you a list of stocks to go check out if you have a certain thesis about, buying stocks at 52-week lows, for instance, in a certain sector. But yeah, so that's one thing. You can also see insider purchases and insider sales across different companies in this interface. You can, look at maps of how stocks are performing on a given day, so heat maps and things like that. There's some other use cases as well for Finviz, but again, it's a paid product to get most of the features, and I find it decently useful. But one platform for a fundamental-based investor, one platform that I highly recommend is Seeking Alpha. So Seeking Alpha has a lot of what we just talked about and more. One cool thing about Seeking Alpha, besides being able to monitor stocks, you can actually drill into stocks and see the news on that stock. You can also see things like earnings call transcripts. So Seeking Alpha is one of the first sites to start publishing transcripts of earnings conference calls for free. So you can look up you can actually read through the Q&A for companies' quarterly results, and that's really, really helpful. And so Seeking Alpha is a great place to track companies and news that are, surrounding those companies. You can also look up things like earnings estimates of that company. You could look up in the peers tab, see what other companies are, grouped with a given company. So in Uber's case, you see Lyft here, and you can see different metrics for that. But yeah, there's lots of different things that you can look at with regard to specific stocks. You can find articles written by different authors about how they feel about that stock. The quality of that really ranges. So some authors are really good, some don't really know what they're doing, but you can see bearish and bullish articles, for instance, here. Another thing that you can find here on Seeking Alpha is you can find economy news. So you can look up, what's happening in the economy and different news releases related to that. You could look up an earnings calendar. So this is really helpful during earnings season. You can see what companies are reporting on what dates. And so, for instance, we see that tomorrow on the 26th, Abercrombie & Fitch is reporting, and Dick's Sporting Goods and other companies. So you can see, going forward, what companies are reporting and on what dates. And so that's really helpful. So another kind of newer up-and-coming platform is Atom.finance. And I mentioned Seeking Alpha having transcripts, and that's really helpful. But Atom also has transcripts, and sometimes their backlog of transcripts is actually even better than Seeking Alpha's, because oftentimes you can find a transcript from a conference that a company went to and where the management team spoke. And so that can be really helpful. For instance, here, if we're looking at like Nordstrom, for example, they were at this conference back in April, and you can see the conference presentation. You can see the transcript. So really helpful. Atom Finance is also free right now. So I've been checking that out and getting some use out of that. So again, great place for transcripts and stock quotes and things like that too. Now, if you're getting really deep into the fundamentals and into financial filings for a company, one platform that I use and pay for is BAM SEC. BAM SEC allows you to look up a company and actually dig into their filings, but it's got a great interface for sorting the filings into categories like financials. You see here, you've got the 10Q and the 10Ks, which are the quarterly and the annual filings that you can access really quickly. So you can get the actual filings with all the notes of the financial statements, and really get into detail on these companies and get into their SEC filings. You can also see all the 8Ks and press releases for the company ordered by most recent, and you can see proxies and insider filings. In fact, there's even a section that shows you insider transactions, so you can see, oh, this this person at the company has been selling stock at this price, or this person's been buying. And there is a section for transcripts as well here on BAM SEC. It is a paid product, but if you dig into filings a lot, it's much more efficient than going to the SEC site and having to dig through all the different links, and the interface is just really nice here with BAM SEC. Another place that I track filings mainly for investment funds is Whale Wisdom, whalewisdom.com. So I like to track hedge funds 13F filings because they detail different large hedge funds' US stock holdings on a quarterly basis, because those hedge funds are required to file with the SEC quarterly through what's called a 13F. And Whale Wisdom gives you a nice interface for seeing that data. So for instance, I'm looking at Tiger Global, which is a hedge fund I follow, pretty popular hedge fund, has done really well over time. And I'm looking at a a list from their 13F, their most recent 13F of their stock holdings. And I can see Microsoft is their largest holding. I can also see the changes in the shares from the prior quarter. For instance, you can see they added a bunch to their Facebook position in the last quarter. They added to their Alibaba position, and they decreased their Fiat Chrysler position. So that's often helpful to find cool new ideas. If you see a new company pop up on a hedge fund that you respect and think is really good, if you see a new company pop up on their filings, that's often maybe a signal to go look at that stock. You can also, besides looking up funds on Whale Wisdom, you can actually look up a stock itself. So for instance, let's say we wanted to look up Fiat Chrysler and see what other funds might have been moving their stakes around and who holds the largest stake. We can actually sort by market value here. You can see that a company called Exor is the largest holder of Fiat Chrysler. Tiger Global still the second largest holder. You've got a couple other mutual funds and different funds that are moving around. Goldman, you can see, added to their stake in the last quarter. So you can see how the holders of a certain stock have changed their positions over time. So that's really helpful. Now, when it comes to looking for screening for new ideas using financial criteria or things like that, I talked about Seeking Alpha has a screener, Finviz has a screener, but there are specific sites that are just focused on stock screening. One of those that I like to use is a site called StockRover. The cool thing about StockRover is that it has a lot of different criteria for screening stocks. So we could come in and you can see that there are, just in this screen, there are a bunch of different criteria. If we want to add criteria, there are lots of different criteria, from financial criteria to technical-based criteria or stock price-based criteria, technical indicators, moving averages, valuation and fundamental criteria. So we could add all these criteria to a screen and look for companies meeting very specific criteria. So I find this to be a helpful tool. There are others that are free. StockRover is a paid product. There are others that are free online. I just find paying for one that has such a robust set of criteria, I find that very useful. But there are other free ones, like Zacks.com has a screener. Now, it doesn't have nearly as many criteria, but that's definitely one that you could use. Yahoo Finance has a basic screener. Again, I don't find it that helpful, but if you're just looking for something basic, it can often fit the bill. So those are some tools. Now, when it comes to tracking economic data or macroeconomic data, I mentioned Koifin has their macro section, but I find tradingeconomics.com to be a very useful site, and it's been just getting better and better over time. What's really cool about it is you can actually track economic indicators across lots of different countries. You can see things in a calendar view. So for instance, we could see what releases are happening this week. You can see for instance, personal income and spending data for October is coming out on Wednesday. And you can set alerts to get alerts and emails when certain types of economic data comes out. You can look at how different things have trended over time. If you dig into one specific economic indicator, for instance, you can see a chart and go back various time frames and see how that's trended. And so that's just a really phenomenal site. Again, on the calendar view, for instance, you can come in here and add different countries, and then it'll show you all those countries by day. So you can look at different dates. So this week, next month. Just a really, really helpful site. They even have an API if you want to access data programmatically, and they're adding more and more things over time. So it's a really cool site with lots of different info. So I definitely recommend you go check out that and explore that, because right now it's free. I believe they do have a premium subscription as well, but there's a lot that you get for free there on Trading Economics. So check that out. Now, when it comes to other advanced platforms for individual investors, I use one called Centeo. This is a really cool platform that has a phenomenal search engine. So let's say I want to search a certain topic. Let's say I want to search a keyword like geoengineering, and I want to know across all the companies out there who has mentioned geoengineering, for instance, in their SEC filings or in their transcripts. And I can actually narrow that down, and I'll search, and I can find all these companies that have mentioned geoengineering in the last year or two. And so this is a cool way to find different stocks. If you're looking at a specific stock, they also have a lot of really detailed financial information that you could actually download into an Excel sheet. They even make adjustments for like non-GAAP financial type information. And you can find lots of like KPIs and segment data. They have things that allow you to download specific tables and compare them against prior financial filings for that same company. They even have a section where you can look at alternative data like estimated web traffic and Twitter and Instagram mentions over time and see that. So very powerful platform, but also very expensive, a couple $100 at least a month. So if you're an investor who is very, very serious about their investing, it's something that you might look into, but probably not for just the average investor who is mostly passive. But again, if you are wanting to take to the next level, Centeo is definitely a fantastic advanced platform. On that note too, another advanced platform that I've been getting into that's worth mentioning, if you're really into data and crunching data and different types of queries and things like that, Intrinio, there's a couple companies that do this type of thing where you can actually programmatically access data. So I've been using Intrinio. There's other ones like Quandl, Finbox, and companies like that. But I've been using Intrinio. It's pretty nice, good interface. It's got an API that allows me to use Python scripts to programmatically pull stock price and fundamental data for US companies into my own database so I can run lots of advanced queries and different metrics that I like to use. So again, it's a paid product, starts at about $50 a month and goes up depending on what types of data sources you want. But I find it very useful and I love what they're doing. So hopefully they just keep expanding the amount of data sources that they have. But check that out if you're, kind of a nerd or half engineer, half investor. Lots of really interesting things you can do when you have big volumes of data that you can run different analyses on. So that's pretty much it for now. There's lots of other sites out there, but those are probably the big ones that I use for now. And if you've got questions about, hey Travis, I want to find good sites for looking at earnings estimates, for instance, I can recommend those. Or if you're looking for a place where you can do something very specific that I haven't mentioned, hit me up in the Q&A and I'll try to see if I have something that fits the bill. If you have any other questions, feel free to hit me in Q&A as well, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, y'all.